Okay, let's call to order the workshop session. First item will be discussion and updates related to COVID-19. Chief Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, I bring you good news. The numbers continue to go down across the state of Texas. There are now 21,146 active cases compared to the 24,000 active cases just 2 weeks ago. Across the state, there are currently 1,430 total patients hospitalized. This afternoon, we did get some information that was updated. The entire state of Texas added 221 new cases, only 2 fatalities. That's for the state. I did hear from Public Health Region 7. They said that they would be able to update us weekly on Fridays. They enter information in on Thursdays. We should get that information on Fridays. As far as for the county of Lampasas, I had to go through there and kind of figure it out. It's not like Dr. Hay used to give to us. I've got to look at what they entered on what date. So just bear with me for just a minute on this. Since May 25th, there have been a total of 23 cases in that time. And we're going to whittle this down here in a minute. Out of that number, 10 were reported since June 10th. So since June 10th, we've only had 10 reported new cases. Last week, there were no reported new cases. So right now, we may have 1 or 2 active cases, but that would be about it.
Good.
But I think that's the best that we're going to do right now as far as getting numbers from Region 7 instead of getting the updates from Dr. Hay just right to us to where it was easy to come in and made me look good. Anyways, probably the most noteworthy news in the state of Texas, El Paso County. El Paso County was really not doing well a couple of months ago, and exciting news for them. They only have 297 active cases, and they were way up for a while. That was back when the state even deployed some resources out there. So that's a bright note across the whole state of Texas. As far as vaccines by zip code, we now have 3,662 completely vaccinated people in the state or in the city of Lampasas, and we have 4,390 that have received at least 1 vaccine. That's not a big jump, but like we said, we've discussed that. That's up about 30 total cases in 2 weeks' time, and that's probably what we're going to see throughout the city. Y'all have any questions for me concerning COVID-19?
Yes, I did want to ask if you've heard of any of the new strain. What are they calling it? Delta something?
Yeah, there's different variants that they have right now. What's coming out, they're not really sure, okay, is the vaccine going to be effective against them? Whether the vaccine's effective at all. I think it's way too early for them to do that. We do discuss that whenever we have the conference calls. The numbers are not high enough right now to where they're able to measure that really. Okay. And so at this time right now, there's no news on the horizon as far as things are going to change and go back to the way that they were. And that's the way we want to keep it. Good. Keep in mind again that the whole point of all this was to slow the spread, and I think as long as we keep going along like this, we're going to be doing well.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next item is discussion regarding, we are going to discuss the Livestock Ordinance and debriefing from the town hall. Chief Bailey.
Mayor, Council, during the town hall meeting, we discussed the basics of a livestock ordinance draft. We discussed the animals that would be prohibited, such as swine, hogs, pigs, pig species, with the exception of 1 companion potbelly pig type, ratites, which are your emus and ostriches, roosters and cockerels once they're 4 months old or 4 months of age or older, guinea fowl, peafowl, fighter fowl, and habitual public nuisance animals. We talked about keeping animals and pens, enclosures, and distances from property and structures. We talked about animal density, large, medium, and small animals, livestock, and defined an animal unit per size of animal. We talked about permits, exemptions, exceptions. We also talked about, and waivers, we talked about appeals. We added to the new ordinance a committee where a committee of an odd number of people would do that final decision upon an appeal. We also talked about violations and the penalty of that violation, that it would be a Class C misdemeanor. We had 7 citizens attend the town hall meeting. We had citizens that voiced about service animals. We described that a miniature livestock horse could be considered a service animal under certain conditions. We also talked about pigs and the current situation that is ongoing in the Sunrise Hills edition that we have. During the livestock draft, we talked about how it's a living document. We had some more eyes look at it. And with those more eyes, we also had our prosecuting attorney, Jackie Baltrin, look at it. And there were some things that she mentioned that we need to address in the ordinance. So we don't want to present to you tonight our first draft of the ordinance. We'd like to wait, go back over it, look over it, make sure that it's consistent in all areas, and then present it to you, hopefully at the next council. Do you have any questions?
Anybody want to comment or question?
Yes, ma'am. You had mentioned that at the time, because I missed the town hall, so you had mentioned service animals. How are we, because I know in some places you can't ask if someone to prove that their animal is a service animal. How is that going to be handled in the ordinance?
There's only one type of livestock that could be considered service animal, and that is the miniature horses. And again, you're correct in that is law that we cannot ask. Jill, they have a special type harness, is that correct for the horse, like they would for the dog?
Some people do, but I don't guess it's necessarily you'd have to have it, but I mean, they would just have like one miniature livestock. It wouldn't be like you'd have a herd out there of service animals,
Right.
so I don't
Could
think
it
it'd
be-
be anything people would.
So it's not something they would have to get permitted or anything like
No,
that?
No, that's something that's just allowed.
Okay.
You know, dogs, miniature horses, so.
Okay.
No, they
Spe-
might register just to know that it's there, but you shouldn't have to get a permit.
Speaking of service,
An exemption or a waiver for that, since they would have that one service animal.
So the gentleman that was here that had service goats, that would not be considered a service
No,
livestock?
a goat would not be considered a service animal. It doesn't fall into the definition of a service animal.
and you've cleared that up with the gentleman that was here?
Yes, we visited with him, and he's aware of that.
Okay.
You know, because I know this is kind of crazy, but I remember quite a few years back, there was a girl that had moved in from another state and wanted to bring a service, like geese.
A service what, I'm sorry?
Geese, like a goose. So that's definite, that they can only,
Geese don't fall into the service animal category either.
Okay.
And sometimes that falls into a companion animal, but it's not within the service animal guidelines. And companion animal is just an animal that lives within your home that is a domestic type of animal. And, you know, there are some variances for pets that could fall into the exceptions and exemptions.
So that gentleman that has the service goats, like he was talking about, he might fall into an exception or an exemption if he was over.
I believe so, with the land that he has and the amount of goats that he has.
Yeah. I'm not sure how many acres he has over there, but I told him, yeah, more than likely he would just be waived just because he has enough property and he doesn't have that many goats, you know, over there as it is, and nobody's ever complained about him, so I don't see why he wouldn't just get a waiver.
So basically, the way that I understand the service animal, providing that it meets in the guidelines, all he has to do, there is no permit to a service animal, and he just has to have the outfit, or for lack of a better word, and he could walk into any restaurant or any public place and be considered a service animal.
Do you want to answer that, Joe? Under the livestock ordinance draft?
Under the livestock ordinance, yeah, it wouldn't apply, but that's the way it is now. Yeah, if somebody had a dog, I mean, they don't even have to wear a vest. They could just say it's a service animal and that's that. But yeah, they could go into a restaurant, they're required to allow them to come in.
Okay.
And that's with the service animals. With the service animals, like I say, with the livestock ordinance, we just have the one, which is the miniature horse that would apply to.
Is that a statewide law or a, okay,
It might be federal law.
Federal law.
I know it's state for sure. But of course, there's different animals. People say it's my emotional support animal. But that's not really covered by law, and you're basically talking about a pet,
Yep.
not a service animal. So that doesn't count.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Next item is discussion regarding the July 7th draft agenda for the city council work session.
Mayor and council, we want to give you the opportunity to take another quick look at what we had planned for you on July 7th. Although I did discuss some concerns with some individuals, we want to make sure that we hear from council a consensus or some sort of collective voice and direction from you regarding what we plan to do on the 7th. One of the concerns that was raised were primarily around project priorities as well as funding and funding options, and I think that is reflected in our agenda. If we take a look at items that we've specifically changed from the last time you looked at this, we do have a little bit more time to discuss options. We're basically spending the entire morning talking about, projects, as well as we've made it inclusive of funding and funding options. The other change that we are looking at doing based on what we heard from the last meeting was probably getting up from the hostess house and going to another venue and continuing our meeting at that spot, whether that's the colored school or the water wastewater shop and lab. Some of that depends on just logistics and our ability to make sure we can get everybody in that building and AC working properly, et cetera. But if we take a look at the itinerary specifically, you can see that generally the entire morning is talking about projects, whether that is, those are projects related to hotel occupancy tax funding or projects in general. Some of these are in various states of completion, some of them just starting out, and certainly we want to spend, like I said, probably a majority of your time together talking about specific direction along those lines. Also be talking a little bit as we get through lunch about our current plans. We hope to have the final CIP or the final comp plan to you by that time. The CIP, discuss a little bit about that schedule as it relates to the overall planning. I think one of the things that we, certainly staff wanted to talk about a little bit in the afternoon is the organizational structure. What are we doing with our workforce? How will we change and modify our workforce based on continued growth? Also, and this is primarily from Mayor Pro Tem Williamson, discussion regarding emergency management, park operational plan, and stakeholder meetings. And then the last kind of longer list of bulleted items has been the typical format of our work plan. So again, we don't want to duplicate the planning or the work that has already been incorporated in the CIP or comp plan for that matter, or even our budget process, but it does give us an idea to, depending on your input, change the format and the planning categories as we have there. Certainly a little wrap up and then be happy to go to whatever other facility you'd like to see. Certainly there, for Councilman Morris and Pierce, I'd be happy to, maybe we just take an afternoon and get in the pickup and start driving around, and maybe that'll kind of help you determine, okay, I want to spend more time and learn a little bit more about this particular facility, but certainly would be open and like to do that in the next week or so. But as I said, if we're on the right track, I'd like to hear that. If we're not on the right track, please tell me which direction to go.
Sounds good to me. Does anyone else have any suggestions?
I have one comment that I'd like to make to the entire council. I came in and Chuck came in and we met with Finley. We had invited, Herb was going to try to make it, but something happened and he didn't get there, something with his work. So one of the things that concerned me before we get into this discussion is the funding. If we set priorities on projects and don't know what the funding's going to be from, or where it comes from, how much it is, so on and so forth, then it's hard to prioritize those projects. So I, for one, am very interested in what we're going to do with the wastewater plant, the pretreatment. As far as buildings and so on, I put a priority on the hostess house as a number one. It's an existing building that we have, and I'm not in favor of taking on new projects that, at this point, until we make sure that we've got everything we talked about
Right.
and committed to funded.
I think that's what we will be doing on the 7th. You'll be able to express any concern, but I think that the deal is we've got 2 new people. We'd like to bring them up to speed, get them on the same page as we are, and then Finley has, I'm sure, will be telling us all about the funding process.
And I can appreciate that, but I had spoke with Finley, and he wanted to make sure that the council understood where I was coming from as well. And unless we know how we're going to pay for it, I don't know how you prioritize those things.
Right. And our 2 new guys, again, please feel free to come up with any of your concerns, anything, however minute it might be. Be sure and let us as a council, this is a perfect day for those kinds of discussions. We'll have some staff, but we'll be focusing on the council.
You know,
whatever we need to talk about can be done on that day.
on this, Mayor, how much, or Finley, feel free, when we had our community planning sessions for,
Yes.
and COVID really got in the way on that, and I had the fortunate pleasure of sitting on that council, or that committee.
The comprehensive plan?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. How much of that comprehensive plan is in what we're going to be talking about as far as on that particular day?
We've scheduled a certain portion in the afternoon, and I think it's under the general topic or talking point related to, let's make sure if it's in the comprehensive plan, we don't either do something that's contradictory to what's already in this planning document that we spend a lot of time and money on, or does the council plan need to have the same thing in it that the comprehensive plan has? So I kind of want to create a vision that they're 2 standalone plans.
Okay.
And I think in my report, you'll hear that I had probably less than half a dozen final edits to provide our consultants. So we should be able to deliver that comp plan to you in its final form before the 7th.
And one of the concerns that I have on that comprehensive plan, because COVID did get in the way.
Yes.
And I think we at least, I don't know exactly, but 6 to 8 months that we were just kind of
Right.
just nothing. And I don't feel like we did our due diligence. I don't feel like I did my due diligence by serving on that committee. And I guess I'll just throw the question out there is, how can we plan when we didn't, we just kind of got maybe half of it done?
Mm-hmm. And we tried to be a little bit creative with how we got public input and input from the committee. We brought folks in small groups rather than 20 or 30 people in at one time. And that, we had some success with that, but to say it was a fluid planning process is probably not accurate.
One of the things I was hoping for with that plan, when we get it, is that we have however many it takes, workshops, to make sure that we've got that thing up to speed with what we've been planning as a council and a committee.
Yes.
I felt that we did a really good job of bringing in the community feedback. I went to several of those meetings, and the community gave us a lot of feedback on that. And Finley, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that you we'll be addressing each item that comes before us as to how it fits in with the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, anything that's appropriate to relate to the comprehensive plan.
Right,
I
it
mean,
will be addressed to us as this is part of the comprehensive plan and this is what we're doing with it.
And we've already started to do that as a matter of practice. For example, in Becky's staff reports for planning and zoning and land use cases. We've used it in some economic development cases as well, where we've said this particular project aligns with this portion of the comprehensive plan as an identified goal. So absolutely, it's, I think at the time, council was very clear that this was a plan that would have specific implementation steps, would be reviewed on a periodic basis against those milestones, and would be something that just isn't going to sit on a shelf.
Right, and it is fluid, as you've mentioned. It grows and it can be changed at any time. But again, on the 7th, I think, bring up any concerns you have. That way we all get to hear them and we can all interject any thoughts we might have about that.
So as it relates to the itinerary and agenda, did we capture some of your concerns or some of the things that you would like to have us talk about?
You did for
Yes.
me, how about
For me.
Right.
everyone else?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Finley.
Thank you.
The next item is a discussion regarding any other item on the regular agenda. Any questions we want to talk about? At this point, do we need a break, or should we just head on into the session? Okay. Are you guys okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, so let's call the regular session to order. We're going to have a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Please all stand. Please join us.
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day that you have given us. Father, we ask that you watch over our meeting today and that you guide us and direct us, and that what we do today, the decisions that we make today, are at your will, Father. Father, we ask that when we end this meeting today, that you watch over everyone and see that everyone makes it home safely. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. We do have a couple of presentations today. We're going to honor Flint Gigley and Leanne Turner. Flint's been with us for 35 years, sorry, Flint, and Leanne for 5 years. Do I have them? Oh, okay. I didn't even look. Want me to come down there?
Contract.
Yes, I want to hug.
Turn it around so you can see.
Thank you both for your service to our community. Going on, we're going to have a public hearing on citizen comments. Any citizen who desires to address the council on a matter not included on the agenda may do so at this time. The city council may not deliberate on any item presented under this agenda item. Do we have anything? No one? Next item is citizen comments on anything that is on the agenda. So moving forward. Discussion and possible action concerning approval of the minutes of the town hall and the regular meeting on June 14th, 2021.
I didn't see any corrections. Recommend approval.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain from Ms. Keeney. We have the consent agenda, which has one item, discussion and possible action regarding the second reading of an ordinance for a specific use permit for property described as Lot 3, Block 8, Hannah Springs Edition, commonly known as 206 North Chestnut, Lampasas, Texas, Lampasas County, to allow for a storage unit or storage building in an area zoned retail.
Recommend approval.
Need a second?
Second.
Mr. Morris, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. We have Information Systems Monthly Report. Monica?
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. You have my monthly report in your packet for May. Many of you know me, but there are a couple of new council members. So I will give you a brief overview of the IT department. My department consists of 2 full-time positions, the IT director and the system administrator, which is Christy Acevedo. We provide IT hardware and software support 24/7 to 110 full-time employees, 16 part-time employees, 10 departments, and 16 buildings. Our department is located in the old City Council chambers. Additionally, we provide hardware and software support for approximately 92 PCs, 22 servers, 5 firewalls, 51 laptops, 69 printers, 21 switches, 16 wireless access points, 7 NAS devices, 10 tablets, 39 Verizon Air cards, and 30+ software applications. Now that I have given you a technology overview, let's look at our fiber network. After the fiber expansion to additional city facilities that we have completed over the last few years, we now have 10 city buildings connected to our structured fiber network. The remaining 6 buildings are still connected via AT&T U-verse. I'll now talk about some of the bigger projects that we have completed this year. First, let's begin with talking about what was a high priority on our list of projects for this fiscal year. First on our list was the AT&T fiber bandwidth upgrade. We worked with AT&T to upgrade our existing 100 meg fiber circuit with a new 500 meg fiber circuit. Additionally, we relocated that fiber circuit from City Hall to the new IT building server room. The additional bandwidth was necessary due to the department growth within the city, software applications in various departments, and the network constraint that we were experiencing from low bandwidth. Second, we replaced our 2 city firewalls and 1 library firewall. After we increased our bandwidth to 500 meg, we needed to upgrade our firewall and our failover firewall model. You may ask, what is a firewall? It is a network security device that monitors incoming and outgoing network traffic and decides whether to allow or block specific traffic based on a defined set of security rules or policies. Our firewall is our first line of defense in network security. You might also ask, what is a failover firewall? In the event that the main firewall incurred hardware failure, the second firewall would take over, leaving little to no downtime on our network. This provides a reliable and redundant network. We also relocated those 2 firewalls from City Hall to the new IT building. And after that, we were able to utilize the old City Hall firewalls at the library. Third, replacement PCs. As part of our annual hardware replacement schedule, we replaced 10 PCs due to outdated failing hardware or unsupported operating systems in various departments. The life expectancy of desktop PCs and servers is around 4 to 5 years. After that, we also replaced the library userful patron PC thin clients, userful server, and software. The userful system at the library was around 7 years old and was due to be upgraded. The next project I will mention is close to being completed, which is a huge milestone for the police department and the IT department. We have been working closely with PD staff, DPS, TSM Consulting, Cardinal Badge, and the cloud provider to implement a CAD, computer-aided dispatch system, for the PD. As part of the process of implementing the Cardinal CAD system, we configured and installed a new PD firewall to maintain security compliance with DPS. We also configured and installed various WatchGuard security software packages, configured a new NetMotion VM server virtual machine, and worked with cloud provider to establish a connection from vehicle unit laptops to the cloud, all while staying compliant with DPS CGIS standards. This project has not been easy, but it is going to be great for them. Our department's piece of this project is now complete, and we are just waiting on CGIS approval to move forward. Now let's talk about cybersecurity training. House Bill 3834 now requires state and local government employees to complete a cybersecurity training program certified by a Department of Information Resources each year. We have an approved DIR cybersecurity training module that we deploy to all city employees to meet this requirement and be in compliance with the state. This training module allows our department to send out simulated phishing tests to see if malicious attachments in emails are opened and/or links are clicked on. When a user opens an attachment or clicks a link that is malicious, it allows our department to see who that employee was and provide them with further education on cybersecurity and keeping our network safe. I am pleased to announce that we recently completed this requirement for the year and are in compliance. Finally, let's talk about website and social media. For the month of May, our city website had 15,490 page visits, 33,174 page views, and 3,140 downloads. Municipal Court collected 18 online payments in the amount of $3,833.01, and City Utility collected 524 online payments in the amount of $140,435.59. As far as social media analytics for the month of May, we had 6,697 Facebook followers, 626 Twitter followers, and 120 Instagram followers. Are there any questions?
Monica, just a quick question that we talked about in the CIP, but are all departments are heavy users as far as IT, or are there some that are more so? I know we've talked about, yeah, she's raising her hand.
Yeah,
But is that growing in intensity because of the way we're automating everything now?
I think it's definitely growing just due to the growth in some of these departments that are getting better technology, and we're just implementing more technology in some of these other departments that require a little bit more from us. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, that's growth, right?
Right,
So,
it's managed growth, yeah.
yeah,
I know I've talked to Finley about it a little bit, but I'm concerned about, as growth happens, the status of our employees. Do we have enough to fulfill the obligations that we have at the level that we do already?
right, right.
Just a question for later on.
Yes, sir.
What's the difference on high-speed internet? And you're going to have to dumb it way down for me because I'm kind of illiterate when it comes to technology. But I hear a lot about high-speed internet. We need high-speed internet. I see the NetLinks trucks running around here, and I'm assuming that that's what they are installing around town. How does all this play in to what you're doing in this technology? And I commend you on it because we've just been trying to do some implementation, and it's a phenomenal feat, and I commend you for it.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate it. So NextLink, they do not have anything to do with the city. Our provider is AT&T, and we do have a dedicated 500 meg circuit dedicated to just the city of Lampasas. So all of those buildings that I showed that were on our network, that's all dedicated to us. We do not share our bandwidth. And so sometimes that there's a difference between internet providers. You know, sometimes you share that bandwidth. So you'll notice, you know, maybe in the evenings it's not as fast as in the mornings or at night. And that's because it's shared bandwidth.
I see. Is there a risk? I know a few years ago when the internet service went out around town and it shut down the stations and the HEB and all that, is there a risk to the city? And if so, is there something else that we can do to circumvent as much risk as we can?
Do you want to speak on that?
I think we have seen some improvements since that summer where we had 4 or 5 outages. I think there's been another redundant line that has come in from AT&T from the north. Previously, we were just served by the one line coming in from the south. So there have been some improvements. I don't know that we've had any kind of debilitating outages since they have done that. So it has improved, but the key is, I think the more different presence you have, the more different backhaulers you have, because they now have the ability to backhaul on other than AT&T lines. The more that happens, the more robust your systems are in town.
Okay. Thank you.
I got a quick question on that cybersecurity training. So I know we completed the requirement, but how do we do it, like with the simulated phishing? I mean,
Okay, so from our side, the IT department side, we are able to input every single user that works at the city and with their email address, and we create a simulated test basically to trick them and make them look very realistic. And we send those out at different times throughout the month, and we do that year-round. And so then whenever we get a report back, weekly, monthly, however we set that campaign, to let us know who was a clicker, who opened the attachment, and then it allows us to red flag the indicators and then provide education to that employee on what to look for next time.
so how are we doing with that? I mean, are there a lot of employees that are falling prey to these?
Well, you know, sometimes, yes. I think our employees are getting better educated, and I think that we're doing better. But at the end, they have to pass a certification test. So yes, we do those simulated phishing tests, but that's just to get them educated. And then it's up to them to complete the certification at the end of the year that we submit to the state.
So as you're tracking that, are you seeing like folks that might have fallen prey to those traps, curbing that behavior or figuring out how to avoid that?
Yes, sir. We do. If we have a clicker, we put them in the clickers group, and they get a lot more education sent to them.
Thank you.
And then we'll screenshot it, and we'll provide education to them on, hey, you know, if you hover over this link, it doesn't take you to that link. You know, there's several examples that we'll provide them.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything else? I wanted to commend you and Christy on what you've done with the old city council chambers. You've done a tremendous job over there with very little, so. Great
Thank you
job.
very much, and thank you all for your support.
Next item up is routine matters. We have the city manager's operational report.
So I think the conversation that Monica and I have had year in and year out, particularly around budget time, is, and I'm kind of like Councilman Pierce, have to dummy things down, but we talk about reliability, we talk about security, we talk about redundancy, and how do we make sure that our network is as safe and robust and reliable and as functional as possible. And Monica and her team, Christy, they do a great job of keeping those overall goals in their practice. Just a few brief comments, Council. The comp plan, as I mentioned previously, we are in the last edit on that. We wanted to receive one last look at the plan prior to it being published, just to make sure, after our kind of extensive list of edits, I think we probably sent them 6 or 8 pages worth of edits, that those were put in there. And by and large, it was all great. We just caught a few grammatical items and then a couple of clarifications on a statement. We hope to get this to you perhaps as early as July 7th. They seem to say that it shouldn't take them very long to make these corrections and shoot them back to us. Also wanted to report that Central Texas Water Supply Corp. has filed a motion for rehearing with the 8th Court of Appeals. And really their points in their rehearing centered around, again, kind of changing the definition of actual costs. So they wanted to change it to mean something other than the costs and calculations that are specifically defined in the contract. We don't know what their next course of action is. I understand that if they are denied their motion, that they are not yet authorized or have not authorized their counsel to appeal to the Supreme Court. We'll wait and see when and if that happens. Our counsel has indicated to me that she will likely not file an answer to their motion for rehearing. She thinks it's pretty straightforward and perhaps maybe put something in front of the court that they don't really need to see. So if Mary seems to have a change of heart or the other counsel does, I'll let you know. But at this point, I think our position is very strong. Senator Buckingham will be in town Friday, July 2nd. I think in an email I sent you 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'd indicated July 3rd, and it was a wrong date. So it's July 2nd, 2:15. It'll be downstairs here at the Calvert Building. It is staff's understanding the Senator would like to review the recent legislative session, any other items that may be important to the city of Lampasas. And I think you've all heard that she is planning on running for the office of Land Commissioner for the state. Pre-treatment. We made a request to Ajinomoto Foods about a week and a half ago for an update. I wanted to impress upon them that it was important that our council be kept up to date in terms of their process. And we got word back that they'd actually have a conceptual proposal that their engineering consultants had prepared for them. We just received that this afternoon. It has been forwarded to Jason Jones at Jones Heroy for his review, and we are planning on at least having a brief Zoom or Teams meeting this week. So the item is kind of based on the activity of today is changed slightly, but I think it's to the benefit in terms of addressing the loading at the pretreatment plant. CIP committee met Thursday, and they reviewed the committee statement and summary. This is kind of the last item that where we highlight all of not only the projects, but all of the trends and perspectives and just operating concerns that have come up from the CIP committee. Some of those themes relate to growth, implementation of the comprehensive plan, whether they should be meeting more frequently, et cetera. So that'll all be rolled up. That represents really the kind of the final piece of the CIP report. We hope to get that packaged up, and certainly for presentation at July 12th, if we can have it packaged up for you by the 7th, that'll be another piece of information that you'll have available to you. Development, just a couple of updates. We finally, after weather delay, been able to get the water tap to CEFCO. We're also relocating some utility poles at the CEFCO site. Waterburger, their relocation of utilities is complete. And then also just looking at the residential development permits, you know, we're still double-digit increase percentage-wise from May 21 to May 20. So everything continues to move along. Again, the wet weather caused a delay not only to city crews, but I think you saw CEFCO was idle for a while before they could bury their tanks. But that work continues. Just Spring Hoe, I just wanted to report, I believe that we're in good shape. You know, it's one of those things where you get everybody in a room and everybody knows what they're doing, shaking their head up, you know, yes. So that is moving forward. Appreciate the PD and their work on it, Lieutenant Montgomery, and of course all the parks, streets, and everyone else's work on that at that effort. Business Park. Recent LEDC meeting, the board authorized the publication of a notice of project, which is a requirement. You'll have to give the public a notice of a project for 60 days before you undertake that project. That is to allow any appeals from the public through the certain protocols in the statute. The Phase 1 infrastructure development is inclusive of roadway, drainage, water, sewer extensions. It will require council approval probably sometime in July, August. It could perhaps serve as many, these extensions between 8 and 16 business sites. As council is aware, the utilities were extended to the business park site in about 2015. However, they were not extended within the property itself, and this takes care of that need, at least for about the northern 35 to 40 acres. I want to take the opportunity to recognize employees who began their career with the city of Lampasas in June. You've already seen a couple of them. Flint Gigley, 35 years. Joe Adams, 19 years. Ronnie Withers, 19 years. Danny Donovan, 11 years. Luann Turner, 5 years. Sean Schroeder, 14 years. Dave Patty, 12 years. Rachel White, 1 year. Jeremy Herring, 1 year. Joe Levine, 14 years. Abel Palacio, 4 years. Morris Wilkins, 2 years. And Gary Spoor, 16 years. And it's funny, there's a name on this list that I think it was my second day at work. We had to go fish him out of Sulphur Creek because he drove the lawnmower into the creek. So Dave Patty, that was something I'll never forget. Anytime I see his name. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Finley. Next item is mayor comments, and I would like to just say congratulations to Mike White for a successful Sulphur Springs car cruise. Chief Smith, as far as I know, there were no injuries or accidents of any sort. Okay. Great turnout. He presented a great show for everyone, and it was very well done. Next item is new business. We have no unfinished business, so the next item is new business. Discussion and possible action regarding the replacement of the irrigation system at the 580 Sports Complex. Chris?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So our control panel that runs our irrigation system at 580 was terribly damaged during the winter storm. And since then, we've met with several contractors out there to try to determine what's the best repair, and it looks like the best repair is total replacement. This company that we've asked to quote for us is the same company that does the irrigation for the golf course and has done it for the last 20 years. Van tells me that they're very responsive. They're always on their toes. They do very good work. So this is an unbudgeted item, but with y'all's approval, we'd like to move forward with this and go ahead and get these repairs underway.
Before any discussion, could I get a motion?
Recommend approval.
Second.
Okay, does anyone have questions?
Since it is unbudgeted, where are we going to get the money from?
That's a good question. I think that Becky is working on trying to file it on insurance. I don't know what the details are there, but I'm sure Becky's got them.
Mayor and Council, yes, I have filed a claim with TML for them to review it and see if what we can do to have some money towards a replacement. But at this time, just with the delay, we're trying to expedite the purchase and hopefully get reimbursed for any funding that we may have to spend. But right now, we have it allocated to come out of Parks Facilities out of their maintenance budget.
So Chris, I noticed that you're looking at 10 to 12 weeks, and I was just concerned about all the good that's been done out there to get those fields done. Is that going to
We
really?
share the same concerns, yes. We're probably gonna have to get pretty creative to try to keep some water on them things and just pray for rain. We've done pretty well this year in rain, so right now they're in pretty good shape. Hopefully we can get creative enough to keep some water on them and keep them moist, but,
Can you line up a tank?
sir?
Can you line up a tank or something to water with?
Maybe the water truck, I don't know. I'm not sure what we're gonna be able to do, but it's a lot of area. You know, we've got probably, I think there's about 12 acres there that are
Yeah.
field and common area that has to stay watered and irrigated.
If we don't move forward, we stand to lose.
Yes, a
Quite a bit more.
considerable
A
investment.
lot of money went into that project out there for those fields,
Yes.
for the type of grass also that was down, and it's going to be a very expensive process if we lose it.
Just out of curiosity, since it is coming out of maintenance, I mean, hopefully TML will cover it and it will fall under insurance. But what would you have to give up? You know, because you said since it's coming out of maintenance, what wouldn't happen?
I don't think that there's anything that won't happen. I mean, any maintenance issues that come up, we're gonna have to address them. We like to stay proactive, but a lot of times like this here, we have to be reactive, and there's just no way around it.
Yes, sir.
Any other concerns or questions? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Next item is discussion and possible action regarding the approval of the Voluntary Annexation Ordinance of Hillside Acres subdivision.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You'll recall this has come to y'all at several meetings as we get through this process. On May 7th is when we actually got the petition for the voluntary annexation from MD Homes. On May the 24th, we actually came before you to grant the petition, and then we had to schedule the public hearing, and then I had to send out notifications to various entities. So at this point, we've done the public hearing, which was done on June the 14th, which is our last meeting. So this meeting, we're actually doing the voluntary ordinance to annex in the property. And this will be a first and final reading. There does not have to be a second reading.
Okay.
Recommend approval.
Need a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
The next item should be discussion and possible action regarding the first reading of the Livestock and Fowl Ordinance, but we're going to take no action on that, and it will come back to us at a later date. 7.4, discussion and possible action regarding the request for proposal seeking qualified commercial prospects to build, expand, or relocate their business to the Lampasas Industrial Park.
Mayor and Council, this is in reference to the city property on 580 East. Mandy was putting this together and is not available this evening due to a baseball game for her son. I think what we'd like your input on, primarily, this is still probably a little bit less than a draft and a little bit more than a concept. So one of the things that we'd like to discuss with council and get your input on is the overall methodology. I think the property previously was used and was incentivized on their lease for an economic development purpose. And before we went down this path, I think there was some direction by council that yes, you still wanted to use it as an economic development, perhaps by lowering the lease payment, or just make sure whoever we leased it to wasn't going to just turn it into a junkyard or just not really using it for a business-type purpose. So the methodology that this draft spells out is basically based on employment, job creation, and also primary job creation, capital investment, their overall capacity to do business in terms of financial, et cetera, as well as their community impact. That would then be scored, and you would go about negotiating with the highest scored interested party. So that is the concept and the methodology. It would require probably, I would say, a couple of council folks to help us score this with staff, but we've still got a long way to go, but that is the basic idea and concept, and I don't know that you necessarily need to approve it in its current form, but if we're on the right track, we'd like to hear that, and if we're not, we'd certainly like your direction to move forward.
So you'd like us to approve it before we make any suggestions and then come back with a...
I think, first of all, the question is this concept, is this what you would like to do with that particular asset that the city has? Do you want to use it for economic development purposes? And if so, do you want to go through this type of procedure to identify an entity that would have perhaps a greater economic benefit for the use of this property?
I think the prior council had decided yes for the economic development, and I've looked through that with the exception of finding out a couple of items about who's already out there and what are they doing for lease or whatever the price. I feel very comfortable with this, that it would be a fair way to get someone out there. Anyone else?
I also like the scoring system. It mirrors our development
Correct.
procedures. And are we going to develop along with this request for proposals, a requirement for upkeep and those types of things?
Sorry, a requirement for what?
For the upkeep and so on and so forth, so we can eliminate those processes that we had to go through with last abandonment?
Yes, I think we can, and you're only going to be as protected as it relates to as good a tenant as you have. So we had, I think, within our lease agreement some protections with the previous property owner that we ended up enforcing. It just took a long time to get that done, but I think there were some protections then, and I think in terms of the specific price that you would lease, the terms of that lease, that's all subject to council approval, and I would recommend that once you determine an entity that you would want to negotiate with, that you then have another step of saying, okay, this is where we need to be protected. This is the maximum term that we would look at. And that term may change depending on your tenant's capital investment. If somebody comes in and says, I'm going to put in, a several $million facility, certainly they want to be able to have a longer term maybe than what we would envision. So I think there are a lot of those details that will be worked out along the way and as it relates to a specific tenant.
Thank you.
And then Finley, if I remember correctly, weren't there a few different people that were interested in this property
That's
currently?
my understanding, yes.
So how long will it take this process to happen so that they can start applying?
I think we'll bring it back to you at the next council meeting, and then we'll go ahead and begin to advertise.
Okay, sounds good.
Do we need
60 days, maybe, start to finish.
Do we need an action then on this?
I I tell you, I don't feel good about the completeness of the product you see in front of you, so if you'd give us another couple of weeks, we'll button it up and then bring you back a better document to approve.
Sounds good. Thank you. Next up, 7.5, discussion and possible action regarding the use of the 580 Sports Complex for the annual Lampasas County Area Go Texan Barbecue Cook-Off to be held on October 8th and 9th, 2021.
Mayor and council, we were contacted by Ms. Leffler showing some interest in using the 580 Sports Complex for this event. We asked her to put together a detailed itinerary to be delivered to the Parks Board, and she was poised to deliver, but we didn't have a quorum, so she was unable to do that. So she's here tonight to give you guys the presentation, and hopefully you will consider approval.
Mayor and Council, I'm Tina Leffler, and I am ambassador for the Lampasas County Area Go Texan. I'd like to give you just a little background because some of you may not know what Area Go Texan is. We were organized in March of 2014 here in Lampasas. We are affiliated with the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, and only way we are is by supporting them through participation with our students showing there, and we do ticket sales as well. And in turn, they give us a $20,000 scholarship to one of our graduating seniors from Lampasas or Lomita. Those students just have to complete the online application, which is open in the fall, and then they award that in the spring. Since our conception then in July of 2014, we became a 501c3, so we are a nonprofit organization as well. Houston has given $136,000 to our community since we began. Locally, we have done $21,250 plus in the 8 years that we've been organized, and we just hope that it continues to grow. There are 68 counties across the state that are members that are Area Go Texan groups. You have to be attached to one that is already a member before you can move on. We are part of District 11, which is the last group that was organized, which includes Bosque, Comanche, Coryell, Hamilton, Mills, and Lampasas. So that being said, our biggest event right now that we do is the barbecue cook-off. This will be our 3rd year of doing it. 2 years ago, we started over in Lomita at their little regional park, but we felt like we wanted to bring it back to Lampasas. It grew. Last year we had 30-plus teams compared to what we had the first year. We're hoping to be able to not make it contained to where we only have so many spots. We're hoping out there at the 580 complex, going beyond the soccer fields, out in those open fields, that we would be able to grow the barbecue cook-off and it become stronger. And 75% of our profits go straight back into our scholarship funds, so that stays here in our county. And then 25% we put into our operation, just to put on the next event or something that we are looking to do. So at this time, I do know that we have, our alcohol permit has been approved. Our special event permit had been approved as well. And we're also working on event insurance. So we would like to know if we can use the 580 complex so that we can proceed on with advertising.
I'm going to recommend approval because I have a question to Chris here in a minute.
Have a second.
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 Randy?
Regarding electricity, those pedestals that are out at the old barbecue place,
Yes.
are those still, I'm looking back at Flint too, but are they movable out there to where it may lend some
Currently,
support?
we're working on a plan to move some of those down to Brook Park along the wall between Valero and our
Okay, for
park.
the other, okay.
What I'll say about this is typically whenever there's an event out there and they request lighting, we charge $20 an hour for lights. They're providing their own lighting, but PD wants us to run those lights, and I just want to make it clear that there will be no charge or no cost associated with running those lights during their event.
We're going to put lights, the field lights on.
We're going to turn on all of our field lights through the night, yes,
Would you
for security reasons. But that's not at their request, that's at PD's request.
Ms. Leffler, is it open to the public?
Yes, sir, it is.
So I can come get some barbecue?
Yes, sir, you can actually come out and judge if you would like to on Saturday. We will be requesting judges to come out.
I would love to.
They take donations.
I can trade.
So Tina, the alcohol permit is just for people bringing their own in. You're not going to serve? Okay.
We
are gonna be bringing their own in. But, when the judging, we're water. We
Okay.
provide water.
So you don't have any beer sponsors?
No, sir, we do not have a beer sponsor. We don't provide it at all. No, sir.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous? Thank you, Tina. Next item is 7.6, discussion and possible action regarding the renewal of the city's health insurance coverage for city employees with Scott and White Health Plan for October 1, 21 to September 30, 22, and authorize the city manager to execute related documents.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I am pleased to present that Scott and White has come back this year with a no increase in our health insurance for our next budget year. That helps us a lot and be able in the budget process planning, and it helps our employees to not see an increase.
Congratulations, and just keep everybody healthy.
It's all contributed to our employees and
Right.
being studious about taking care of their health and going to the doctor and keep our claims down.
Move to approve.
Got a motion,
Second.
a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous?
Thank you.
Thanks, Yvonne. 7.8, discussion and possible action regarding the proposed joint use agreement between the City of Lampasas and Southwestern Bell Telephone, DBA AT&T. Did I miss one?
Wait a minute.
Sorry.
Yep.
It's me again.
Renewal of the lease for the quadrant, whatever that.
Discussion and possible action regarding the lease agreement renewal with Quadient and a new IX-5 AF mailing system. Sorry.
Not a problem. Mayor and council, we have a postage machine that we use for all of our postage that goes out for all of our city mail. And we normally have a 5-year lease agreement with them. It's up for renewal in July. I've gotten a proposal back from them with regarding to what a new system would cost and a new availability for us for the $171.26 per month, which is budgeted. I do have that allocated already. So I just was asking for y'all to consider us getting an upgrade and renewing our lease for our postage machine.
Recommend approval.
Second.
Any questions or concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous.
Thank y'all very much.
Now we're to 7.8, talking about the joint use agreement between the city and the AT&T, Finley.
Mayor and council, hopefully the best for last. I'm very pleased to have this on the council agenda for your consideration. This is a culmination of probably about a year's worth of negotiation with AT&T. They have provided us the terms that they would agree to and that are acceptable to our consultants as well as our attorneys. The agreement was really spearheaded by local government services. It was also reviewed prior to her retirement from Lloyd Gosling by Georgia Crump and Joe Christie Brown. Just as a reminder, we were operating under a 1949 agreement where our attachments were well below what they would be today. Also in 1949, there was a greater parity in polls, so the difference between Southwestern Bell's number they had versus the number the city had, we were probably about the same. And obviously that has shifted dramatically to the city. We have also been able to do this without going through a fairly tedious and complicated FCC process in terms of rate making for the calculation of those attachments. The agreement, just a couple of very general things, and then you can ask questions, but it's in terms of the protocols and procedures, they're very detailed within this agreement in terms of you have to be permitted. What do you do if you have to switch poles? Can you sell a pole? What's the charge if you have to do a certain item on someone else's pole? So that's very detailed. The fee is looked at, I believe, every once, I believe after 5 years and every 3 years thereafter, you can take another look at the fee. The term of the agreement is 5 years, and then after which it's a year-by-year, year-to-year term. With if you wanted to get out of it, you would have to provide the other party 90 days notice. The notice or the cancellation of this would not require the owner of the pole to make you remove the attachment on that pole. You could not add any additional attachments beyond that point. But all in all, I think it's very favorable. It's a long process, and certainly it would be staff's recommendation that you consider a motion to authorize the city manager to execute the general agreement for joint use poles by and between the city of Lampasas and AT&T.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I just have one question. On their poles, are we a swap money-wise?
So
They have their own poles.
correct. So the way the calculation works, if they have 1,800 attachments on our poles, which is approximately what they have, if we have 300 attachments on their pole, then they compensate us for the difference, 1,500 attachments. So, correct.
And so we'd be locked in at that rate for 5 years? Is the
Correct.
agreement? Okay.
And
Much better than the 1949 rate.
let me just double check that. Is subject to a good faith renegotiation following the initial 5-year period and every 3 years thereafter upon the party's written request.
And the audits will remain in compliance with the, about the same as the renewals?
So the poll audit, I believe, where it addresses the frequency is in 13.1. Audit may be conducted no more frequently than once every 5 years, and owner will provide 60 days notice of joint user of its intent to conduct a poll audit. So every 5 years, no more frequent than every 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Finally, there was a word on page 137 under the financial insurance indemnification. It's FESS, related to unauthorized attachment, and I didn't know what that meant.
Oh, should be fees.
Oh, good.
I'm sorry, that's Gary's, I should have proofed Gary's executive summary a little closer.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you for getting that done, Finley. That's been a long haul.
You bet.
And I think we're ready if we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.